Hello and welcome to the Wellness Connection podcast. I'm your host, Fiona Kane. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about mental health and some of the things that I have seen coming up that I feel like some of our awareness about mental health and our acknowledging that we need support, those sorts of things, a lot of it has actually been really beneficial and really good. But some of it's gone too far, and some of it has actually now become a crutch that is damaging for our mental health, in my opinion. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of those things and some of the things that I see that are concerning me. And, and some of this is, it's an evolution for me as well, because some of these things, they're tools that I've used or I will use, and they're useful tools, but it's like, then it kind of, there's a point at which it's not useful anymore, put it that way. So the first thing to remember is that when we're looking at building, a strong mental health, and when we're looking at any like physical, mental health, whatever health, when you're looking at building health, you're looking at building capacity and building strength and being able to cope with life and deal with life and have a certain amount of resilience, right? So whether it be mental or physical health, it's kind of the same idea that we want this resilience and we want this capacity. And so that's what we're looking at. The problem with mental health is we've gone a little bit the other way, where we're actually encouraging people to be afraid of their own shadow, and it's all about safe spaces and about avoiding any pain. And that is not helpful. So I'll just talk a little bit about some of the things in regards to this that I'm talking about. So one of those things is in regards to boundaries. So boundaries are really important, and they're a strategy that I talk to my clients about. And it is really, really important to understand what boundaries are and what they're not. And they're certainly not just walls. They're not walls, but some people believe that that's what they are. They just believe they're a 20-foot wall, put up this wall, and then they don't have to deal with any pain or difficulty or challenge. And like, I'm not saying there's never a situation where you might need to put up a wall like that. Obviously, in life is complicated, and there might be some reasons in some situations where that is appropriate for you, between you and a certain situation or a certain person or something. But largely, what the point of boundaries is to help you build capacity. So what you might do is you might say, all right, I'm struggling to deal with that, my challenging parent or my challenging whoever it is in your life. I do need to take a bit of time out because I just need to recharge and recalibrate, and then I'll be stronger, and then I can manage this a little bit better, and I've built up my capacity and I can manage it better. And sometimes that's a more appropriate answer than just saying you should never talk to that person again. Obviously, there are situations when that is appropriate, but in general, what I'm seeing is a lot of people they're destroying relationships, they're splitting off from their family, then stop talking to their parents, and sometimes it's over politics, it's over all sorts of things. And more often than not, that does not need to be the answer. Sometimes it would be the answer, but not always. And that's the thing too. It's like, I've talked about this in, I think, last week's episode, where I was talking to Alison Devine about this. But I have a concern that, in universities, they create these sort of safe spaces so they can go and colour in case they've been triggered by something that's upsetting. You're sitting in a university course and you just hear some information or whatever. Now, I get that there would be a very small percentage of cases where someone's got PTSD or someone's got a really severe issue, and something would be actually truly triggering for them. So I get that that exists, and I get that it's real. But this is just like hurty feelings. I heard something I don't agree with. I heard something I don't like, right? So it's kind of what we've done is with a lot of psychology, we've kind of turned it into our language and the way we talk, and we just self-diagnose, and it's all, we all talk in this psychobabble. And what we've done is we've taken from something that, yes, is real and is valid, but then we've turned it into an everyday language, and we use it in situations where it's completely inappropriate. And we use it as a shield to avoid having hurty feelings or having uh, discomfort or being challenged on an opinion or being, all of those things, like sitting in a just uncomfortable feeling, whatever it is, where now what we're doing is we're using a lot of this psychobabble language and to as an excuse to check out of the world and not uh, not face realities and not manage and deal with relationships, because most of the relationships in our lives are worth managing and challenging, managing whatever, but just doing the things you need to do to repair or keep it in a way that works for you, right? And instead of doing that, we're just kind of like, oh no, I'm looking after my. It's all about self care and it's all about boundaries, and we're using a lot of this language to really shut ourselves off for the world, off from the world, avoid reality, avoid having any discomfort or anything that challenges us, and that's not self care, and that's not helping you build capacity. What it is, it's just you disengaging, withdrawing, and avoiding. And if you know anything about therapy or therapy tools or mental health, using the tools to do that is not what they're made for. The tools are actually made to help you build capacity. So you might need to take time out and practice self-care, and sometimes put up walls or avoidance or whatever. You might need to do that in moments and then times to heal and to like I said, build up your capacity, build up your strength, go back into a situation. But they're not meant as permanent sort of just get out of jail free card, avoid life, avoid challenge tools, because that's not building capacity. That's actually making you like really kind of weak and really vulnerable, right? Because the slightest thing can affect you because you haven't built capacity. All you've done is avoid the situation. And what can happen with therapy is when you do go into any kind of therapy, it can bring up a lot of grief. It can bring up a lot of resentment. You kind of suddenly have an awareness around how you've been abandoned or how you've been treated badly or what's gone wrong in your life. And so again, you can kind of understand that stuff and, feel it, process it, move on, or you can kind of live there and sort of start building up your ideas of who your next enemy is and where, who you're going to blame for the way you are or the way you feel, as opposed to kind of just going, oh, okay, I understand what's happened, right? And that's what people are doing, right? So we're kind of over adjusting things, and even just the idea of needing peace, that like anything for peace, and you even see this language in uh, when you look at I was talking previously in other episodes about the trans ideology, and you see it a lot in that ideology where if someone doesn't affirm you or use your right pronoun, apparently it's destroying to you. And that these children, or even just not just children, these people are told that if someone doesn't use their pronoun, that will destroy them, or that that might make them want to end things, and they're kind of told that this is the truth, and that's kind of like a type of genocide when someone doesn't use your pronoun or whatever. That's not building capacity. We cannot need the world to completely sort of run around, put us in, walk on eggshells and put you in, foam wrap or something, and make sure that nothing harms you, and make sure you don't ever hear a word that you don't like, or that someone doesn't misrepresent you or say a bad thing or say something that you just find hurtful, but that person didn't intend as hurtful. And that's the thing with the pronoun thing as well. It's like, it's turning something that is someone kind of just identifying someone who looks like probably what they were born as, into it's this horrible, terrible thing that person wants you gone, and wants to destroy you and is trying to destroy you, and and reeling from this event. Like, why set people up like that? I think telling people that the world has to change the way they talk, the language they use, the way they respond to you, the way they see you, and everything you hear has to be affirming. And this isn't just for that situation, but this is just in general, that going back to the just general mental health thing, is that you have to affirm me and my trauma, and the trauma is another one, right? Like that, obviously we've all most people experience some level of trauma, but there's levels of this, right? But what we're doing now is, that the hearing something you don't want to hear is trauma, right? And it's triggering and trauma, and you can't deal with it, and you need mental health time, and a lot of it's just life, right? So there again, there's real traumas and there are real issues and there's real PTSD and all of those things. However, what we're doing is we're translating it into the everyday stuff in life that isn't real trauma, or not to the level of I need mental health space and I need to retreat. It's just like, oh, that wasn't fun. Oh well, I'll be okay, kind of thing. So what we're doing is we're using a whole bunch of mental health and sort of psychobubble language as a way, as a crutch, and as a way to avoid things in life, as a way to justify our behaviors and justify our stances, and as a way to really kind of not grow up and not build capacity. And so you can see why that's not particularly healthy if you're approaching life from that place. It's not, things aren't going to go so well for you. It is really important that we learn to have capacity. And I had this sort of argument with someone once online. we what was I doing? But anyway, these things happen. And, she was saying, oh, I want to create the world that is better for my three children. And I don't want them to ever hear these things or go through this. And look, hey, it's a great idea. You want to create a better world. Good on you. However, the reality is the better option, and you can still be fighting for the great world. Wonderful, good on you. But the sensible option is actually to build the capacity of your children so they can deal with the real world. And then if in the meantime you save the world and change the world, well, good on you. Well done. But just in case you're not able to do that, or you're not able to do it in your children's sort of lifetime or as they're growing up, maybe build some capacity with them about dealing with reality and dealing with the real world. And the world doesn't end when they have a disappointment, or when they hear the word no, or when something doesn't work out for them, or when people don't affirm their idea of who they are. So I think building capacity is a far more sensible option than retreating. So please be aware, like if you find yourself, if you notice yourself using a lot of this psychobabble language, be aware of that, because the other thing that we do is we use it as a way of well, all of these things have happened to me, and also it's all the names, right? So now I'm a all the labels that people use on themselves, and some of them are related to uh, words, Fiona. Look, some of them are related to things like mental health, so they might be diagnosed as about ADD or ADHD or those kinds of things, spectrumy things, whatever, neuro spicy, all that kind of stuff. And some of them are related to gender and sexuality and all those things. But it's just like you see these young people introducing themselves, and it's like, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm something, and I'm a survivor of trauma and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, man, so you start your whole day with all of this sort of stuff that you carry around with you as some sort of armor and some sort of, I don't know, the way that, and I'm not saying all those things are negative, by the way, of being like, be whatever you are, whatever, but it's just the way that it's used and the way these things are all carried around. We're just avoiding doing life, right? So, and I've talked about this before. I've talked about this in another episode where I said that, your identity, who you are as a human being, who you are in the world, that is forged, and is forged by going out there and being in the world. It does not come from watching TikTok videos and deciding that you think you're a fox or whatever. It just does not work that way, right? So when we kind of, what we do now, and I suppose because I suppose COVID must have made it worse because we had all that time at home and too much time alone. And I think having mobile phones and TikTok and things like that have made it worse because we spend so much time staring into the abyss of either doom scrolling, doom scrolling, or like looking at ourselves through filters and things like that. A lot of young people spend a hell of a lot of time looking at themselves in the mirror, whereas when we were younger, it really wasn't a thing. And so what's happening now is we're living our life, so much of it just like in our head, and and in our little echo chambers of groups of people that we interact with online. And the thing is these days is that because of the way algorithms work, you can very much be in an echo chamber. And look, most people are in a variation of an echo chamber. There's just different levels of it, and there's levels at which you know that you're in an echo chamber but you still know about the real world, and there's levels at which you are in an echo chamber and you've got no idea about other opinions in the real world, and other things. So there's it's kind of different levels, but essentially the way algorithms and things work, they just keep pumping to you the things you want to see, the things you believe in, and then you join the groups of friends or the groups of the online groups or whatever, who all agree with you and all affirm whatever your idea is, whatever your thing is, right? And so then what happens is we are not dealing with the real world. So the reality is, when I was growing up, is you kind of went out and you got a job. And I was out working full time when I was 16. I was working full time in the city in Sydney, and I just learned. I learned how to catch a train to work on my own, and it was a long way from where I lived as well. And I learned how to manage, how to get around the city and how to get around the streets and how to find my way around. And I learned how to manage different situations with different people or different situations with work colleagues. And there was no safe space or safe room when people were mean to me. And believe me, a lot of people were mean to me. That's the reality of the world, but also the reality of being a woman in the 80s and 90s, so forth, working I did a lot of secretarial type roles and support roles. So things were quite different in those days. So I experienced a lot of terrible things, but I don't like I also experienced a lot of really good things, a lot of really useful things, and I learned a lot, and I grew as a person, and I grew my capacity, and I became more and more of who I am. And then I had some health issues, which is kind of what led me to down the track of doing the health stuff, right? But life life happened to me, and I engaged in life, and I got involved in life, and that's how became who I am, and I'm still becoming and still learning and still growing and whatever. And the same as, I've talked about before, how my experience with losing my mum a few years ago and spending a lot of time with her in palliative care, that sort of thing. They're not things like as much as that there was traumatic moments in that, absolutely, and it was very difficult. That it is also life, and it is normal life, and it is what most people experience. And so it's not kind of some trauma that needs to be avoided. A lot of it is stuff that you need to do, and a lot of experiences in life are rites of passage, like being dumped by a boyfriend, or losing a parent, or losing a job, or being bullied, or whatever. And like, I'm not saying, I know there's extremes of this, and I'm not making light of the extremes involved in this, and the dollies of the world, the young girl who ended things in regards to bullying. I'm not making light of any of that at all. All I'm saying is that the resolution, or the solution to mental health issues, is not to fall down a well of psychobabble, labels, and kind of saying, well, I don't have to do it because I'm this, or I'm a victim, so I don't have to, nothing's expected of me, or I need a safe space because I don't like to hear hurty things. I need to be kept safe from the world, and safe from anything that's scary or bad. That's not helpful. So to live a healthy life, healthy mentally and physically, a lot of it involves capacity building mentally and physically. And we do not capacity build by avoidance and by making all sorts of justifications of why we don't need to engage, just using walls and things, but just using it all in psychobabble language. So it's very justifiable, and it's very okay, and it's perfectly acceptable. And I think that's where I'm sort of trying to get to. So a lot of these tools are very good tools in their own way, used appropriately, and labels and all the rest of it. A lot of it, it's the thing about a lot of these things, is that there's something in these things that's true and valuable and all of those things. Problem is, what we do is we extract from that and then go, overcorrect and then turn it into things that are not true, not helpful, not beautiful, not supportive, not capacity building. And then we wonder why we're all such a mess, right? So, just something to think about. I just think it's worth thinking about whether or not, you know, it's worth thinking about how you use language and how you use psychobabble and how you are you capacity building or are you reducing your capacity? And same with your children, and just have a reflection on that. Anyway, um, thanks for listening to me today. Look, please like, subscribe, share, rate, review, all those things, and I will talk to you again next week. Okay, thank you. And don't forget, this is Real Conversations about things that matter. Bye.